What is going on, family? How is everyone doing? Listen, get your libations or whatever you need. Get your libations, get yourself together, calm yourself, get your nerves together, whatever you need to do. Listen, I have not decided on a book club for the next book club. I have gotten a lot of suggestions. Somebody said I share the suggestions too. I'm going to try to do that. I might do it as a tweets and stuff. I may do a poll. Who knows? But anyway, while we're doing this, please take the time to, hold on one second. Please take the time to hit that like button. I would appreciate it. I forgot my notes. I guess we winging it tonight. Please hit that like button. If you want to donate, as always, go to donatebrown.com or patreon.com/ycarnell. We have the hoodies up on adosmerch.com if you want to do that. They're black. So, if you want to do that, that's up to you. It's totally up to you. But you can hit that like button. Cost you no monies. You can go to subscribetobrown.com to add your email to my list. Cost you nothing. You can also hit that bell if you have not. You can hit that subscribe button if you have not. All of these things are free to you. So I would appreciate it if you did them. And as soon, I think we need some time to recover from the last book club book anyway. So we'll get to another one pretty soon. But I think we need a little time to kind of like gather ourselves. For those of you who didn't watch part 1 and 2 of the book club, They Were Her Property Conversation, those are up. Please go take a look at those. Read the book at your leisure. Of course, no calling in for you. You were late, but you will still be able to hear it and kind of see how your ideas jive with what everybody else said. And that's wonderful. But let me just say this, family, as we're having this conversation, we're having this reparations conversation. We're having this reparations debate, a debate that nobody wanted to have in the Democratic Party, right? Everybody wants us to be their mule, right? Just carry this load for us. It's going to be fine. It'll be all right. Now, here's the thing. What happens, though, and it's happened historically, because we're seeing this. Let me see if I can pull up. Now, this isn't the same thing. This is a Chicago suburb that's going to give reparations to black residents, right? Through a tax. That's a different thing than what we're talking about. This kind of inclusion through equity is different things, different ways to kind of pay reparations through cannabis. And this way, if you just tax it and you pay it, I don't necessarily have issues with it. Even though we have to understand that it's not a substitution for the United States government coming in and doing its part. But I have no issue with that. But understand that there have been a great many news articles and different things which have come out and said that ADOS reparations are going to be paid through our inclusion in the cannabis industry. So we're going to be included. They're calling it social equity, and they're saying this somehow is going to help make up for the disparity in arrests and mass incarceration from cannabis. And we're going to be here. We're going to be in it. We're going to be in it, and ain't nothing in it but to win. This is another one from the Denver Post. What is social equity in Colorado's cannabis industry, right? So one thing that I just want to say as we get started having this conversation, and I'm going to show you why in a little while. We're going to go through a bunch of quotes today, so bear with me. But beware of the trick. The trick is very important. And there are some telltale signs to recognize that you're being tricked. But one of the telltale signs to recognize that you're being tricked is there is no budget for you as ADOS. We don't have a budget. There's no outlay of money. There are no institutions supporting any kind of reparations program. It's just supposed to be inclusion in the market. And even that goes wrong, because I don't support any presidential candidate at this date. But I remember Elizabeth Warren said something a long time ago that was very important. And it's true. She said politics is personnel. Meaning you can put something in place in terms of a political agenda. But if what you put in place in terms of a political agenda is being executed by people who don't want to see it happen, you're going to have problems. Now, that's what we saw as ADOS in the South with the New Deal. Wasn't supposed to exclude us, but it did because of the Dixiecrats in the South who were implementing it. So much of politics is personnel. That's how it has to be written in a very specific way to include us and redistribution of wealth specifically for us. It can't be just for black people. Because you can go back now, you have people who can go in their DNA and say, well, I'm black too, I got 20%. Even though they didn't bear the cost of blackness. Beware of the trick. And the tricks are coming fast and in a hurry. Now let me show you what I mean regarding this cannabis industry thing we've been hearing about. Now, what does it say? What does this article say? What does this headline say? Because this is supposed to be social equity, and they're going to use that to make up for stuff. This was supposed to be reparations. Why is LA's cannabis industry devastating black entrepreneurs? Well, you tell me, why is it devastating black entrepreneurs? It's supposed to be reparations. You put it that way, talk about social equity and what it's going to do. And what it is doing and what it has done is make ADOS broker than they were before they decided they wanted to be in the industry. That's what it has done. But let's read a little bit of it, shall we? Fewer than 20 of the 100 businesses on track to receive license through the program appear to be black owned. Pay attention to the word appear to be. According to estimates from advocates who say the community most disproportionately targeted by marijuana arrests is again facing discrimination. And even some of those applicants now face precarious futures. Meanwhile, the existing LA industry is thriving with many white business owners at the helm. We went to jail, they get the monies. Even when they say it's going to be social equity. No. That ain't what we're doing. Here we go to the next quote. How do you get to come and make millions of dollars off of our misery? Said Lineage Edwards, a South LA native who had applied for a cannabis license through the program. The war on drugs has destroyed many families. We should at least get to come out on the other end and create some wealth out of it. But it's not going to happen the way this is going. You're right. This was supposed to be Our Reparations. Formally launched in 2018, LA's equity program received national attention and praise from activists as a potential model for the rest of the nation as more states legalize cannabis. The city aimed to right some of the wrongs of criminalization by giving new retail licenses to people from communities historically harmed by marijuana laws, and by eliminating some of the traditional barriers in opening small businesses. Residents would be eligible if they were low income and had cannabis arrests or convictions on their records, or lived in LA neighborhoods that were disproportionately targeted by the policing of pot. Don't nobody say that no more. Anyway, out of nearly 200 cannabis retailers previously approved by the city of LA to do medical dispensaries, only 6 are black owned, according to Virgil Grant, one of the 6 owners and a co-founder of the California Minority Alliance, which advocates inclusion. Even fewer are Latino owned, he said. Why even include that? I don't even know. Because okay. I want you to look at this caption real quick. Just look at it. It says, Kika Keith has rented this storefront for more than a year, waiting for the city to finalize her application for a cannabis business. Now understand something, fam. I just want you to understand. I want to make sure you're hearing what I'm hearing. If you have to rent a storefront while you're waiting on the cannabis business to include you or do whatever they got to do, that means you have to have enough money to just rent something that is not making you any money. That means you have to have capital. And see, the thing about investors, and we'll see this in a minute, investors get tired. So really what you need is some of your own money, some of your own wealth. That's what they're requiring, right? They're requiring that the recipients of this, they said they were going to intend it for people who have been historically damaged by these laws, which is disproportionately us. But what they're saying is that to access it, you have to be white, basically, or have to been a person of color who has accessed whiteness. Because that's what wealth is. So it's supposed to be, in a sense, kind of reparations for the descendants of slaves. But in order to really do well, you have to not have slavery in your background. Because that's what it would take to be able to just have this storefront property and just rent it for however long. And just have it there. And, you know, you can just hold it. How many Negroes you know have extra money to just hold on to something? Just rent this extra storefront property until, you know, until LA get around to doing it. What that means is that they're doing a weeding out process. They're weeding out people who don't have wealth. I don't care what they call it, don't matter to me. But you're weeding out people who don't have wealth and making a way in for people who do have wealth. And that means when you're weeding out people who don't have wealth, you're weeding out ADOS. The people that it's supposed to be intended for. Understand when a trick is being played on you. You just have to know. You have to know that this is not your reparations. This is a business. And businesses require a certain amount of wealth. Now let's go to the next part. Let's go to this next quote. In addition, many candidates who did make the top 100 list do not appear to be representative of the victims of LA's war on drugs. The eligibility requirements were not specific to race. Wait a minute. Not specific to race. It's supposed to be our reparations, but it's not specific to race. An activist said the geographical boundaries of the impacted neighborhoods were too broad, ultimately allowing a wide range of applicants who were not directly affected by marijuana arrests. It's a trick. It's a trick. I'm sorry to say it. I'd hate to say it, but this is a trick. And it's not just race. You can't use race. We got to stop that. You know, that's why lineage is so important. I saw somebody that was the whole post went around. I think it was a conservative. He did his DNA and he got back 17% African American, and he said, "What's up, my N words?" And that's the problem with using race. I don't know. I saw somebody sent me a clip of a professor somewhere talking about we can't exclude our black immigrant brothers and sisters from reparations. And I just want to say, how moronic are you? Because if you do it based on race, you're going to have a whole bunch of white people who can claim that, you know, they have a black race, 30, 20, 40%, whatever they have, who have not bore the cost of race. But because you made it about race instead of lineage, you've torpedoed the whole program. And you've made it to where we have a mixed up group. This is what America is, an amalgamation. So you created it to where not only when you talk about immigrant groups, you created to where white people can access reparations, which is a throwaway. So then just throw the whole program away. You don't, how are you a professor and you don't understand how stupid what you just said was? You can't make it about race. You have to make it about lineage. And it has to be specific, because if it's not specific, we end up with programs like this, which, well, it was supposed to be about race, but then it wasn't about race. And then, well, I don't know. And the gobbledygook and the booga-jabook and the booga-booga-booga. I mean, what does that mean? You have to be specific. If you're going to do a program, when we talk about reparations, see, you see this is a mess. This is a whole mess. I think it was probably an intentional mess, but it's a mess. You have to be specific, and you have to have exclusion. You have to exclude groups. I don't care what your heart feel or what you think you want to do, and that's just ain't right. Listen, CARICOM has their own program. We have ours, and we have every right to ours. And there's nothing exclusionary about that. There's nothing xenophobic about that. And allies get it. It's only dodo birds that don't get it and run around talking about how we have to. There are a lot of people running around saying things that aren't nice. You dodo bird. Listen, no. If you do that, you include a whole bunch of people. Because if you say that, well, what defines blackness? Is it 30%? 30% black? 40% black? 50%? 60%? How you gonna tell me I'm not black? I got my DNA back. I don't know how these people are supposed to be thinking people. But back to the mess in LA. Let's get back to the mess in LA. Look at what they're doing. It was supposed to be their reparations. A DCR spokesperson said the agency does not collect demographic information on business owners and is legally barred from using race as a factor. You see, we saw that. Now let's go on to this. We saw most of that. Well, let me make sure we heard the bottom part. Activists estimated that only 18 of the people who made the top 100 list were African American. In order to be eligible, the city required that applicants already possessed appropriate retail spaces. So hold on, wait a minute. I want you to make sure you understand that. In order to be eligible for the program, you had to already have the retail space, which means you already had what? Say it with me, everybody. You already had wealth. That's the only way you can have the retail space. And some people will say this. Let me take it off for just 1 second. Some people will say this. Well, Yvette, you don't have to have wealth. You can just go get investors. You don't have to have wealth, Yvette. Just go get investors. Well, some of them did. And I'm going to show you in a second how that worked out. I'm going to show you in a second how just getting investors worked out for these people. Let's stay on this track for just a moment, shall we? They had to possess appropriate retail spaces, which meant many last year raced to start renting storefronts and securing investors. They are now faced with uncertain timelines and no guarantees of licenses. Ain't that something? Keith planned to sell healthy infused cannabis beverages and support a youth program in the process. My whole purpose was to reinvest in the community, he said, and kudos. She secured the 143rd spot on the city's list, but with the uncertainty of the process and ongoing audit, her investors recently pulled out. Your investors not going to wait for you forever. They're not going to sit around and this is going on, give me my money. Running out of time and money, she's now questioning whether to give up her space. I'm starting back at point A. There's no end in sight. Lineage Edwards, who was arrested for smoking pot as a teenager and had relatives spend years behind bars for marijuana offenses, had no plans and a location for the Beverly Grove dispensary. What'd you say? Wait a minute. Had plans and a location for a Beverly Groves dispensary. It would secure financial stability for her family and emphasize healing by offering jobs for people targeted by criminalization, she said. For my children, it would be a chance for generational wealth, and I'd be able to give some youth employment and show that people who look like them can go into business. Who look like them can go into business. Who look like them. You know, when I say don't get tricked, one of the things that they have always done, and it probably goes back to before Nixon, it probably goes back to Reconstruction. But one of the things that has always been done to us, inflicted upon us, is they know that we have a desire to work for ourselves. We have a desire to build for ourselves. But given what we have been robbed of, they also know that there's no way for us to do that without reparations. But they know that they can play to that part of us that really wants to see that happen, right? And so what you do is you put something out there that's not backed by trillions of dollars, which is what we're owed and what the racial wealth gap is. They put that out there and say, listen, this is your reparations. You take this and you run off with it and you make it happen. And you don't want a handout, do you? Why would you want a handout? You don't want to do that. You want to make for yourself. Yes. You want to do for self. Yes. Because we really want to. We don't like the fact that we've been victimized. Makes us very uncomfortable as a group. But it's still the truth. And so instead of putting forth a reparations plan, because we're at that stage where every Democratic candidate who wants our vote should have a plan. You have a Medicare for all. You have all the plans. Instead of putting together a plan for us, what you do, instead of that, what you do is you come with some kind of business gobbledygookity boogity. So what am I talking about? Well, let me just say this. There are a few things that we have done as a community or have been pushed to us. Now, right now, we're living through the era of opportunity zones. When they're pushing opportunity zones, you don't want no handout. You want to buy back the block, don't you? You want to do reverse gentrification, don't you? And we're like, yeah, we do. The people who don't know better are like, we do. We're going to buy back the block. And it sounds good, but you can't how you going to buy back the block with no wealth? How you going to buy back the block with no wealth? So they know we can't. And so they put something out that it looks like it's for us, but it's really a gentrification thing, and it's a way to park white wealth. And this is just one of many tricks, right? One half the Nigerian homes in LA are worth more than $100K, which means that one half of the Nigerians in LA in the top 10% blacks nationally. So when you say black, see, when you go back to the LA, and the numbers I'm talking about from the LA color of wealth report. On the wealth report, one half the Nigerian homes in LA are worth more than $100K, which means that one half the Nigerians in LA are in the top 10% of blacks nationally. They then can qualify because it's based on race, it's based on blackness, and it's not based on lineage. Same for any other group. Everybody is inclusive at their own peril. Everybody is stupid at their own peril. Everybody is following people who don't know anything at their own peril. Opportunity zones are not designed for us. The same way that, I remember going back through my mind, opportunity zones is only the latest manifestation, right? We have had, I was thinking before the show, all of the things, and there are a lot of them, all of the different things that are dodges, all these dodges that America uses to make sure that this country never does reparations. So when I was in college, everybody was talking about owning a franchise. We're going to own a franchise. I'm going to own a franchise. You going to own a franchise? I'm going to own a franchise. I'm going to buy a franchise. These franchise, man, that's the way to be. Opportunity zones is just today. And then not too long ago, we had the whole craze with we're going to make money through cryptocurrency. Right? I remember we talked about this not too long ago with the Lonzo Ball shoe. That was going to be the thing. Black business, black wealth, black business. If you buy one stock ain't nothing. Shut up. That's your boy again. If you buy, if you have a time machine, basically, if you could go back to 1964 and not be black and buy one of these things, a stock, do you know how much money you'd have today? Because you would have to not come from a slave to make half of this stuff. No, most of this stuff work. Because nobody invests with one stock. You invest on scale. And you have enough money to diversify so that you don't lose in one thing. I almost cried when I saw this fool telling people to go get one stock. You could just buy a share. What do you buy one share? I ain't never seen a broker let you buy one share. You buy one share. And I gave my son 5 Nike shares for Christmas. You got people doing the dumbest things. You have to know at a certain point, you have to begin to recognize the tricks that are being used on you. Then we have what we're gonna do for self in terms of we're gonna create our own basketball leagues, sports. Then you realize, who are all these Qatari investors? Wait a minute, there was not enough black wealth for you to do black business. Well, you had black investors, but it wasn't enough money. Wasn't enough of the monies? And then they done fooled you and you mad and confused. You don't know what's going on because they do this all the time with their money. They have it even on that scale that you have, it's not the same. You have TV money, personality money. That's not the same as oil money or whatever they got. We're going to start a league. We're going to do Black Hollywood. We're going to do a lot of stuff I don't see being done. We're going to do Black Hollywood. What else we was going to do? Oh, I know what else we was going to do. We was going to do, I was one of these kids. We was going to Cosby our way out. We was going to go to a HBCU, a good school, and the education was going to plug in. It ain't work. And nothing worked. But instead of realizing, you know what, this must be a trick because nothing is working. There must be a trick bag in here somewhere because nothing is working. We just keep coming back for more. We just keep believing. Then we said, well, we the culture. We the culture. We gonna do the culture. We the culture. And we run the culture. I'm so sick of Negroes talking about do it for the culture. Shut up. But then we have this whole situation with now Puffy been talking real good. I remember we were talking about the Comcast and Byron Allen. He was talking real good. I remember that. And then he came and he talked real good about the Grammys. Talked real good, and that was some good stuff. Started telling the truth about stuff. Then it turns out, maybe if we believe, Mace, that you've been doing one thing when you deal with black artists and talking about how we gotta support black people. You've been doing a whole nother thing behind the scenes now. Could it be that the only person who really got paid at Bad Boy was you? There was a great Andre Harrell quote from a long time ago which said there was a whole pie in terms of these black record labels and they only got the crumbs on the edges. Nobody likes to bring that quote up no more. So the question I have, family, is how long? How long are we gonna run? Are we gonna really, 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 really fall for the okie doke? We've been falling for the okie doke. They play into our desire to be self-sufficient and all this stuff. And then the next thing you know, you back to square one like these people. Let me just put this quote up here. This is back to the LA cannabis and what they're going through. You jump through all of these hoops and it's taken away from you, she said, adding that it would be hard for would-be entrepreneurs to trust the city as the industry continued to leave people behind. How the hell is the face of cannabis white now? How could that even be possible when you see who did all the jail time? How could LA get this wrong? Maybe LA didn't get it wrong. Maybe they got it right for what they wanted to do. Have we ever thought about that? Evelyn and Brinson, both 33, downsized their home and sold a car to finance their planned marijuana business. Both 33. Come on, man. And Brandon, who was a barber, stopped paying rent for his space at the shop. Our whole life savings are in this project. On a recent afternoon, the couple showed the Guardian around the still vacant store they had rent to house their dispensary. They pointed to empty glass shelves and the display counters that would feature their products. They estimate that they have lost more than $200,000 on the endeavor. So something was supposed to be for black wealth and promoted as building black wealth has made us poorer. Right? Now, you all remember, I talk about Andrew Johnson a lot on this show. There was supposed to be land redistributed to ADOS. Instead, it went back to the Confederates because they needed us as a commodity to make cotton, not just for the South, but Great Britain, as in The Color of Money. For those of you who have read the book, I'm going to get to the author of that book who says some interesting things a little bit later. They could have us, and we could have been owning our own farms and doing all of the things that they talk about. They stole that from us. You can't give that. Listen, even if LA did everything right, you can't give this back to me through opportunity. You give this back to me through reparations. Yes, we need opportunity. And yes, we need inclusion. We need economic inclusion. That's part of what Byron Allen's lawsuit was about. But what we're talking about here in terms of how you make us whole as a group, you don't do that outside of reparations. That's always been it. And let me just get to the quote at the top of this page. Why call it social equity and make people think that you're helping the black and brown? I hate why people keep saying black and brown. They just made us say it too. Black and brown communities, Evelyn said, it's stressful seeing everything that you've worked for in your entire life being placed in something that you thought was going to be an opportunity to help you, and it has literally hurt you. Absolutely. And that's not it. That's not all. You know what you can do though? You can't get opportunity because you don't have the wealth to sit there. And they know you don't have the wealth to just sit there. A lot of people do though. What you can do is be the face. Remember we were talking about they were her property and how diversity programs, like a lot of, you have women who the man is really running the company, but it's a diversity program so she can get diversity set aside. Even though she's a white woman with a white husband or whatever, and he's really the company. You remember we talked about that? Well, you're seeing some of that in the cannabis industry as well. Now this Burners, whatever this Burners little shop is, a little Burners weed shop, I think it's in San Francisco. Check this out. Burners on High is also supposed to be a social justice success story. The dispensary claims to be the first in San Francisco to be owned by a black man, a longtime city nonviolence advocate named Sean Richard, right? But hold on one second. And although both of Richard's ownership partners are white men, Burners is nonetheless the very first weed store to open for business under the city's equities program, one of a growing number of efforts across the country to try to make the legalized cannabis industry less white. The problem, always a problem, many critics say, is that equity programs suffer from the exact same failings as every other business effort in cannabis. In order to stand a chance of winning a permit, let alone founding a viable business, black and brown business people must still find well-capitalized partners. Gotta find white people. Almost always this means finding white partners, rendering equity programs little more than a cynical example of tokenism at best. Tokenism at best. See, you fell for the banana in the tailpipe again. So I'm going to do this. You're not going to do it without white partners. And that means you're not free. Understand what we're talking about here is freedom. If you can't do it independently, that means you haven't been made whole. We haven't been made whole. If we can't do it by ourselves, with ourselves, as a group or individually, we haven't been made whole. We got to always, how are you free as a business person? You got to always go find white people. But that's a social equity program. No, you're just the face of something. That's all. And the minute they don't need you anymore, you're going to get tossed. You're going to get plucked. thrown in the trash can. Garbage. That's it. They needed you to be there for that. But let's finish reading about this little white-owned dispensary. In the case of Berners, not only was Richard compelled to partner with a kind of young, tech-savvy white man who already dominated the cannabis industry, he also partnered with white men who enjoyed political connections and who figured out a way to master the application process in order to edge out other applicants. For the first weed store on this part of whatever street, including people of color who say this compromised the process. So you got with the white boys who had the social capital and they used you. They said we're gonna put a black face in the face of the face and we're gonna use you. And we done figured out how to game the system. And you're part of how we gaming the system. You're not really important. You're part of how we're gaming the system for us. Right? And you couldn't have done it without us. That's not, I don't know. In the 2010 study from the Minority Business Development Agency found that white business owners started their businesses with an average of $106,702 in capital, compared to $35,205 for African American owned business. We must keep in mind the primary reason for business failure is low capitalization. This is from the report. This is a quote from the wealth report that I mentioned earlier. We must keep in mind that primary reason for business failure is capitalization, and blacks began the entrepreneurship game with low capital finance, reinforcing the theme that wealth begets wealth. Wealth begets wealth. You're not starting a cannabis business, sweetheart. You may find some white people who want to use you as the face of that business. Or you may get into the business and get everything stripped from you. And they're going to call that reparation and walk off. They keep doing stuff and calling the reparation and walking off. That's not even inclusion. Because you didn't even give like a business grant or a business loan. You made me eat all this failure. In terms of the timeline, I got to keep this storefront up. And then, there was another quote. Let me see if I can find this other quote. There was another woman. I'll just say it. There was another person in this series of quotes who was even worse. This black person who was getting into the weed business held on to a piece of property because there was one of the rules is that there has to be like no weed dispensaries nearby. Held on to it for like a year. They said, no, you can't do it because there's a weed dispensary near where you are. She said, no, it's not. It's no weed dispensary near where I am. They had kind of grandfathered in somebody who had a weed business from Oregon. So she lost all this money, like with her dispensary and everything. And because they had grandfathered somebody in whiteness, because they already had one in Oregon. So much BS. They're basically just extracting money from ADOS and calling it reparations. You think about that. You extract money and call it reparations. Ain't that something? You're gonna take my money because I'm gonna have an investment here, and I'm gonna invest, and you're gonna set up something to where I can't really do anything with it, or the white boy got to come and save me, whichever. And in which case, if you get in business with somebody and they have the capital, you're not in business. I hope I don't have to explain that to anybody. If you get in business with somebody and you don't have any capital, it's not a business. You're the face. If they have the overwhelming majority of the capital, you see what I just read. If they had a capital, and you were the face. They needed a black face. They needed a black face and a good black story, and that was you. That's it. That's all you are. You're a story in the face. So don't tell me that we don't need reparations. I don't know who you think you're talking to. Compromise the process. difficult to know. The problem is that so far, the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry is overwhelmingly white and male. In a 2016 report, reporter Amanda Chicago Lewis, is that your name? Found that only 1% of dispensaries nationwide were owned by black people. A review the following year conducted by Marijuana Business Daily discovered 81% of the people who started cannabis firms were white. In Chicago, all 11 of the stores selling weed on January 1, the first day of legal sales in Illinois, were white owned, prompting black city aldermen to compare cannabis to sharecropping. And this is how the dude tried to make it like, we're doing it different. Big business is coming in, trying to push us out. We're going to really bring people. He was on the Breakfast Club, talking about the culture. I'm so tired. Every time somebody talk about the culture, I'm whatever. That's a whole nother issue. We're doing it for the culture. See, what you have to understand is that this has always been done. That's what we have to understand. This idea that we're not going to give you reparations. What we're going to give you black capitalism, right? Without capital. And that's going to be your reparations. I don't know, and when you hear people say that today, what you have to, and I said this before on the show, but I want to drive it home. What you have to understand is that the people who are saying that today are parroting Nixon. Nixon was forced to leave the White House. That's who they're parroting on. Listen to this. Focusing on black capitalism allowed Nixon to neutralize black resistance while also undermining the demand for reparations and diminishing the social safety net. So he just talked. I mean, I don't have another way to say it. He just talked. Somebody, gilding the ghetto. During the campaign, Nixon co-opted Black Power's rhetoric of economic self-determination to call for a segregated black economy. He used language of free market capitalism, a racially neutral and unpopular idea at the time, to embrace the idea of black enterprise. People in the ghetto, Nixon said, have to have more than an equal chance. They have to be given a dividend. Who does that sound like? Black business and black banking, the theory went, would be the key to black economic progress because they would allow black communities to use their own money to create a beneficial multiplier effect. This move allowed Nixon to neutralize black resistance, indeed to enlist the full-throated support of many activists, while also furthering his coalition's desire for a diminished social safety net. By discouraging welfare dependency in the name of black enterprise, he was able to undermine black demands for economic redress and reparations. People who own their homes, he reasoned, don't burn their neighborhoods. This same logic later justified his dismantling of Lyndon B. Johnson's war on poverty programs, as well as his neglect of other anti-poverty efforts, which were seen as costly and responsible for creating the dependency state. With a little federal aid, it placed the black problem, the problem of poverty, in the hands of black entrepreneurs. See, let me just say something. Understand that this is one of the telltale signs that you are being conned. If the person, whether it's a politician or a governor or a mayor, if that person is telling you that you are the solution to your own problem, you're being conned. America did this. America has to fix it. Now, I'm not saying that there can't be other programs like this, tax programs, that can be an addendum, an addition to what is being done. It can absolutely be an addition to what you're doing, but it cannot be a replacement for it. And you little Negro, me little Negro, we cannot fix this. We are not Superman. I know some of us think that, and I hear Superman, Superwoman, whatever you want to call yourself. You are not that. I hate to be a bee in your bonnet and bother you. But any program that tells you that your job is to fix what the government broke is lying to you. And anytime, just check for that. That's all you got to ever do. All you got to ever do is this thing asking me to fix what America broke? And if the answer to that is yes, then you're looking at a bunch of horse manure. You have to know that. There's not a lot that you have to know, but you got to know that. In a radio program in 1968, Nixon doubled down on his messaging, saying that Black Americans do not want more government programs which perpetuate dependency. They don't want to be a colony in a nation. They want the pride. Understand, he's hitting at your emotions now. Hitting you at the emotions. They want the pride and the self-respect and the dignity that only come if they have an equal chance to own their own homes, to own their own businesses, to be managers and executives as well as workers, to have a piece of the action, a piece of the private enterprise. Doesn't that sound like everything we hear today from do-for-selfers? Do-for-selfers are taking their pages out of Nixon. Now Humphrey, we're talking about this election. Humphrey pushed back on Nixon's black capitalism plan in the presidential race, calling it double talk. When Nixon promised voters that the program would cost little, Humphrey retorted, "Of course it will take money. Talking about black capitalism without capital is just kiting. What is it? Kiting political checks." Listen, who didn't I say something about capitalism without capital and financial literacy without finance? Let's finish this up really quickly. Nixon was practically, pay attention to this. Nixon was practically repeating Malcolm X, who had said that the black man should be focusing his every effort toward building his own business and decent homes for himself. Although Nixon left out the part where Malcolm had said, "Show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker." He also ignored black power demands for land, reparations, and political sovereignty. So be very careful when these people nitpick and piecemeal Malcolm and other people. Be very careful with these cherry pickers. These cherry pickers are a problem. In 1969, Nixon signed an executive order 11458 establishing the Office of Minority Business Enterprise within the Department of Commerce. The OMB was allocated no direct funds, but instructed to seek private business contributions and help from federal agencies. What this meant in real terms was the OMBE was given responsibility for advising, encouraging, mobilizing, evaluating, collecting information, coordinating activities. But beyond this vague mission, it did not have a mandate or a budget. What have I said, fam, about the importance of a budget? If you want to show me, if you want to prove to me that you mean what you're doing, that's why I don't get down with this HR 40 stuff like this. Because what you have to prove to me is that you're going to do an outlay. The budget is what matters. And don't just do a budget, because somebody will come to you with a budget and say, we're going to do $10 million for what you want. And you'll be saying, oh, you'll be thinking about $10 million like you hit the lottery. Oh, $10 million, a lot of money, $10 million. Compared to what? All budgets are comparatively. You look at every outlay that's compared to what you need. What does this cost? You go into everything knowing the answer. Because if you wait for somebody to tell you the answer, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have a lot of trouble. We have to. And we have to understand when we're being taken advantage of. And we're so desirous. And I understand it. And I'm not judging it. Just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean I'm judging it. I'm not judging it. I understand wholeheartedly the desperation. I do. I understand wanting to have a business and be able to walk around and tell people, hey, I'm a business person or whatever. Or I'm, because what you really want to say is I'm American, the same way everybody else is American. I get it. That doesn't, but you can't allow people to like take advantage of that emotional part of yourself that is desirous of that. And you have to understand that the only way we're made whole and made complete is through reparations. It doesn't come from any of this other stuff, because this other stuff requires that we already had reparations. Right? Like if we got reparations, then we could do all the stuff they're talking about. Right? Let me bring up something real quick. I want to bring up one more image. Like if we, like all of these, so many of these prescriptions kind of, it's almost if they're moving on the map that we already got reparations. We're looking for a way, we're looking for something to do with them. So it's like we already got reparations. We're looking for some way to put our money. So we already got it. And what am I going to do with it? Okay, the government has set aside some inclusion for me. Right? And so what am I going to do with that inclusion? That's almost what it, but that's not what it is. And we've been trying all of this stuff. So let me put this up just 1 second. Freedman's bank fails, devastating the black community. For those who say, well, we should have done it differently. We just didn't do it right. We never was good. Understand what happened. In an attempt to restore public trust in the institution, prominent black leader Frederick Douglass was brought on as the bank's president in early 1874. Douglass believed in the importance of the bank's economic power, even putting thousands of dollars of his own money into the coffers to keep the bank afloat. Despite these efforts, the Freedman's Bank closed its doors in late June 1874. Many sources place the exact date around June 28th, 29th, and the press began to report on the failure. The bank's closure caused more than 60,000 black Americans and black organizations to lose $3 million in savings. Many victims waited for years for a mere fraction of their deposits to be returned. The failure of the Freedman's Bank financially devastated many who had entrusted it with their funds and had been linked to a cultural legacy of distrust towards banking system within the community. Now here's the thing. I want y'all to research this, and you'll figure out, if you look it up, you'll figure out the white speculators. I think one of them was a founder of Howard University, if I'm not mistaken. The white speculators who were a part of what happened to Freedman's Bank. So we did all of that, took little sharecropping money, all of that, and put it in the bank, and they used it and did what they did with it. And then we're left with nothing. Happens every time. Because you have to have ownership. We have to have reparations. Have to have ownership. Have to have government protection, so people just can't come in and speculate. So somebody look up. I'm gonna leave that part to you, because when you look up like really what really happened to Freedman, it's something. It's absolutely unbelievable, but it happened. It's American history. So anyway, fam, I want to hear what everybody has to say. Somebody said, yeah, they speculated all the money away. And we got nothing. It was just gone. White boys playing. No rules. But I want to hear what you all have to say, fam, about the cannabis and what we're going to do. And let's speak to how we keep falling for the okie doke. We have to get into some kind of way where like our emotions, like we got to, somebody can't just manipulate us and make us feel, and they don't have the stuff set up right. Like, what are we doing? Like, how are we? I understand everybody wants to be in business, and they told us one thing and they did another. Well, America ain't did nothing to us but lie the whole time. So how do we? You can't assume any kind of honesty. But anyway, fam, I'm gonna go to the phones. We'll be back in a minute, and I want to hear what everybody has to say. All right, family, we are back. We are back. We are back. Got the phone calls, got the phone lines lit up. Anyway, so I want to hear what everybody got to say. So I am going to I am going to let me go to I'm going to 401. 401, what's your name? Where you calling from? And what's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette. I love you and
Love you
Tony.
back.
I love what you're doing. I've been with you for a few years now, not even a couple, a few years now. And I just want to say about this marijuana thing, listen, ADOS knows about weed. I come from the bottom. What I mean by that, I know about the underworld of weed. I know about an eighth, a 1.5, a 1.8, a half ounce, quarter ounce. My family, 90% of the males in my family have prison records.
Okay.
I'm going to start off by saying that.
Mm.
So that parchment stuff, that hits me to the heart because a lot of my family spent time in prison.
Absolutely.
Spent a lot of time in prison. So when all this stuff about cannabis started coming about, I always thought they would put ADOS at least 50-50. So let's say that. So let's play the devil's advocate and just say ADOS should be 50-50. Whatever they did in where was it? Denver, Colorado? Colorado, that's where everybody's making the most money right now, in my opinion. California, they're making money, but in Denver, Colorado, everybody's making a lot of money. But ADOS ain't making a lot of money in Colorado.
Okay.
And it's because what you're trying to teach us with political education, they don't want us at the table. They do not want us at the table. I don't have a prison record, but I don't have, and I put up in the post, I don't have $500,000 to get in the game. In Rhode Island, you need $500,000. You need $500,000. And that's just to get all the paperwork and all that other stuff done. And then they do a background check on you and all this other stuff. Now imagine if I bring a couple of my cousins and a couple of my family members, they got felony records, but they know more about marijuana than all these white people trying to get into the marijuana game. Think about that. It should be 50-50. It would be reparations as far as cannabis was. It was 50-50. Meaning if you have five white guys, women, or whoever that open up these stores, you also have 5 ADOS. And I say ADOS because let me tell you something. The majority, listen, you know Snoop Dogg, you know Dr. Dre's first album was called The Chronic. His first hit record was The Chronic. His first hit record was The Chronic. So you know ADOS knows about cannabis. It should be a 50-50 game. And I love what you and Tony are doing.
Thank you, fam. I appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you, fam.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, anybody got a cool 500, cool $500,000 sitting around for me? Middle black family worth $1,700. Like, how many black families you gonna get to? It's gonna take you to get to $500,000. Like, you can't say something is your reparations when it requires you to have a reparations check or something to do it. I would, in order to have $500,000, I would have to have already gotten some kind of reparations. What kind of trick is this? What kind of game are you playing? Anyway, I'm going to my next call. I am going to 860. 860, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Miss Yvette? It's me, Ro, from A6. So, yeah, I wanted to call in on this one because, like, I got a card, and when I go to the dispensary, I don't see us there. I don't see us being represented there at all, in any way, shape, or fashion. And it seemed like they're just taking up whatever money, any aspect of any avenue of us getting money is being boxed out, even on a street level. Mm-hmm. So I find this is a very questionable situation.
Yeah.
Because, and then for them to say that this is a form of reparations and we're not really getting a fair shake out of it, it's not a good look either.
Well, I think they're looking for a way to call something reparations, right? And even if it was, like, I'm just saying, even if it was, like, even if they gave you a grant to do it, like, take all the money out there, they gave you a grant, they gave you the education or whatever, gave you somebody who had done it before and they helped you, it's still not reparations. It's still like, I would call that economic inclusion. That's still not reparations.
Well, yeah. And on top of that, you still have people that have, when they have their businesses, they get taxed, they get raided. I've seen a couple articles about that. People who are just having their business, just regular black people, open up their businesses in a shop and they get raided. Yeah. And there's stuff in there, get a bad stigma now nobody doesn't want to go. So like, these are some of the things that still affects, even that's like the price of doing business. And it's really sick that it's really hit us five times harder because we don't have that much resources to go around for that.
That's true.
So I really think how they're setting it up is just set up to fail. And it's only benefiting one person.
Well, and I will go further than that, fam. I don't even think it's just setting us up to fail. I think it's also setting us up to extract wealth from us, right? So even if the wealth doesn't go to whatever the LA County or whatever, even if like you set this thing up and you try to do it and you can't do it, what happens is the whole system itself extracts wealth because you put all this money, the barber story, and you sold a car, whatever. The whole idea and the business plan extracted wealth from you. So it does.
Well, it's even deeper. Well, I also get that, but when you also talk about extracting, but I look at it also from a form of the crack epidemic, where they're putting in that, or what they could be. I'm just saying hypothetically, we don't know, but it leads us to believe that we don't have a fair share or fair shake in these type of things. We will stop them from putting whatever into that situation. Yeah. There's already been a proven situation like the CE experiment and a whole bunch of other things that predominantly just hits us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, fam. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much. But yeah, I agree. Stuff that just hits us. Ain't that something? That's who we are almost. The stuff that just hits us. I'm going to 217. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, Yvette. This is Cynthia from Chicago. How are you?
Pretty good, Cynthia. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. You know, I think you hit a nerve a little bit talking about marijuana and reparations.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you are familiar what they're trying to do in Evanston, Illinois.
I put the image up there. I heard about that too, off the taxes. What do you think about that?
So the alderman that is proposing the bill, I believe that she's working with members of Encobra in order for her to, and what they're basically trying to do is they're wanting to use the money that they're getting for cannabis sales to fund their reparations program, which is not really reparations, it's mostly equity. And one of the things that she even said on a radio program recently is that this particular fund is supposed to go to all the black people within that Evanston area, including Caribbeans and other blacks like Africans. So again, that's not reparations, no. That is equity.
No,
that's people of color, that's minorities, right?
Absolutely.
And so like and I know that even some people from our chapter here try to talk with her about it, and she just kept on ignoring us. So that's one thing. So I found that quite fascinating. But going on to this whole other thing concerning, cannabis being our reparations, they opened a dispensary in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And it's owned by a company that's called Mission Dispensary.
Okay.
And they actually own medical and recreational dispensaries in a few different states, including Michigan, I think on the East Coast. And I was around there the other day, and I saw that there was a line wrapped around the building for people trying to get in so that they could buy marijuana.
Okay.
And none of them was black.
Line wrapped around the building.
All of them were white. All of them were white. And my neighborhood is blackity, blackity, black.
She's blackity, black, black.
As a matter of fact, I was like, well, I'm wondering how come when nobody black really in the line? So I happened to go on their website so I could look at the prices, and needless to say that you can get a better price from your weed man.
Oh, but see, your weed man will get you arrested, won't he? I mean, I'm just saying, you got a prescription, you can bring that back. That's part of the, you don't see, that's part of what people don't want. They don't want to absorb that risk. See, a lot of what, if you're buying marijuana illegally, what happens is you are risking like something. You know what I mean? Like what happens when you're buying from this dispensary or whatever people do. Like you're not risking anything because it's legal and you don't want to. We've been just absorbing all the risk in America. We've been absorbing the risk like crazy. I don't even think we understand where risk is when we see it.
Right. I mean, because I even looked up, like, you know, how much you can actually carry as an individual here in Chicago, well, in Illinois. I think it's like 30 grams or less that you can carry legally. So, like, of course, if you're caught with more, that's a fine or arresting. And I think that I read an article not too long ago that was saying that they're even to kind of like beef up people's licenses so that to discourage you from, like, you know, buying from your local weed man, that, you know, you're still at risk of any type of jailing or fine, you know, if you happen to either procure your marijuana from an outside source or you have too much. Because that's kind of like their tail sign. It's like, okay, if you're holding more than 30 grams, that means you sell it. And if you're selling, you're undercutting the people who actually paid for their licenses. But the first round of licenses that went out in Chicago was like, about $300,000? And nobody, especially ADOS, was going to sit up there and, you know, come up that money because we don't have it. And I know that they're supposed to be doing some type of equity lottery. And you have until Thursday to actually apply for it here in Chicago. But those licenses are still like around $5,000. And they're targeting certain areas that were like disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. But you still also have to secure a space, and that's more money that you have to come up with. And it has to there's like certain criteria that particular space has to actually lean to in order for them to even think about giving you the license. And even if you come up with the money and secure a space, there's still no guarantee that you will be awarded the license. So it's just awful. It's awful.
It's awful. It's awful.
It is just awful. But I just wanted to share that. I love you. I love Tone. I'm ADOS 10 toes down on the ground. ADOS Chicago.
We appreciate you. And you better get that weed out your car. I'm just playing with you.
I ain't got no weed, I promise, fam. I promise.
You know a lot. You know. All right, fam. I appreciate you. Hey, fam, tell me what's going on in Iowa. I keep getting messages about it's like it's coming undone. Like, give me some message in the chat. What's going on in Iowa right now with that thing they got going on there? The caucuses. Anyway. All right, fam. Let me go to the next call. While y'all do that, I don't know what's going on. I am going now to 773. 773. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette. What's up, man?
What's going on? How you doing, Mom?
Not much, man. I just heard Cynthia from ADO Chicago laying it down. So I didn't expect you to bring me right in, but you know, we're about 20 or 30 minutes from Evanston. And so what Cynthia said, we've talked with the alderman there, and the Evanston is so foreign black to the extent that we know somebody from Evanston, and they said that the high school they went to is like 75 or 80% foreign black. And even after talking with the alderman, she went on record and said that it would be divisive not to include the entire black population.
So fairness is divisive. Like, nobody would ever say, like, well, we have to include, when we're dealing with the Holocaust, if we don't include people who just adopted Judaism yesterday, as opposed to like Holocaust victims and their descendants, that would be divisive. But all of a sudden here, being fair and adhering to the principles of justice is divisive.
Well, the problem is, as Cynthia said, what happened was once it got out that what she was trying to do, and Cobra ran up there and kind of stuck their fangs in it, and they started teaching her their perspective on reparations, and now that's the lane she's in. But the foreign black problem notwithstanding, if you just do the math on that project,
she said that they want to raise $10 million over 10 years through the sales tax of cannabis. And if you do the math alone on that, even with the foreign black population, it equals out in terms of value to about $50 a person a month for 10 years. So
$50.
Aside from the foreign black issue.
What's she doing?
Yeah, well, that's what it. Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to give it out in cash, but whatever the value, however they do it, however they distribute it, that's what the value equals to. So aside from the foreign black issue, it's woefully inadequate economically. And lastly, the issue with it and other local reparations initiatives is what they're doing, and we got to be careful with this. If we aren't careful, well, so let me say this first. So in Chicago, they're trying to do something similar. What they're trying to do is they're trying to do a similar bill to what Evanston did. And this is an NCOBRA project and a few other folks, and they're conflating contracts, school funding, etc., with reparations. And so we all know that the national conversation about reparations has been tabled by ADOS. So a presidential candidate can't walk across the street without being asked about reparations because of what we've done. And so if we aren't careful with these local initiatives, what I fear is that it will allow presidential candidates to say, I agree with reparations, but we think it should be a state-by-state issue.
States' rights nonsense. And when the federal government did it, and we're not doing no more state stuff.
Right. So that's the issue with these local reparations initiatives. And Bloomberg just came out recently and said he agrees with reparations, but it should be in the form of education. So they are already
wait. Hold on, Mom. Just wait 1 second for me. I just got to absorb what you said because I didn't know that. How are you going to give me reparations by giving me something that the country is supposed to give me anyway? I don't understand. Like, I'm supposed to have access to an education in this country as an American. That has nothing to do with like coming from slavery and everything that's been ripped from us in terms of opportunity and wealth. The whole thing. What is he talking about? Oh.
Well, see, this is what I'm saying with these local reparations initiatives. They're conflating things like getting contracts and school funding and neighborhood funding, stuff you're supposed to get for being a tax-paying population in a particular state or city, with reparations. Well, reparations is in addition to those things. You're supposed to get school funding. You're supposed to get contracts. You're supposed to get you're supposed to get state, county, and city funds to your community. Reparations would be in addition, a payment in addition to that. And what we're seeing with these local reparations initiatives is a lot of politicians are using reparations as a way to kind of cover the inadequacy of their legislative history. They're supposed to be getting this stuff for their community. And if we aren't careful, if we don't stand on this real hard and make a very clear definition of what reparations is supposed to be, we may give Democratic candidates a way out of what reparations is. And that's my biggest fear. So, and I'll give you one analogy, and I'll get off the call. So, what's happening with these local issues, local reparation initiatives, is very similar to let's say you worked at Amazon, and you've been working at Amazon for 10, 15 years, and you got injured, say 10 years ago on a forklift, and you still work at Amazon, you still get your check, you still get your regularly scheduled raises, right? Mm-hmm. And so one day they say, okay, we've settled your lawsuit and we're going to pay you. And you look at your paycheck, and your raise that you're supposed to get anyway is labeled as your lawsuit payment. This is what they're trying to do. This is what could happen if we start adopting local reparations initiatives. We'll give them an opportunity to say, well, what you're supposed to be getting anyway in terms of equity, in terms of a commensurate amount of state, county, and local and city funds, we're going to call that reparations. And now we have a whole other hill to climb as it relates to the federal piece. So we got to be careful with these initiatives.
Well, they're gonna basically say, like, we're gonna call your citizenship reparations. And you know how we got lost in that? And I didn't even deal with that when it happened at the time, because I was like, well, I didn't even take issue with Bernie Sanders the first time around, because I was like, the NAACP got the same stuff up as reparations. Like, they had it up as like investment in housing and investment. I was like, you can't. It's hard to critique them because the NAACP got the same. This was like 2000. When was that he first ran? What was it like? But it was like, it was hard to critique him because it's like the same thing. The NAACP got the same thing up. Like just investment, investment in communities.
Yes. Yeah, so we got to reject these initiatives, and we're protectors of what reparations is, so we got to reject these local initiatives.
All right, man, I appreciate you calling in. They're going to give you that $50 a month. Appreciate it, fam. They're gonna give us that $50 a month. That ain't even gas money, child, for the week. If you drive, depending on what kind of car you drive, they're gonna give us that and call it a day. And we're gonna be walking around here. And then Cobra, can y'all sit down? I thought y'all had sat down. You just don't do nothing but make a mess. Every time you walk outside, you make a mess. You just knock over some stuff. You don't know what you're doing. I'm tired of y'all with your Kangos and your things on. I'm tired of you walking around with all these broad colors. You wasn't doing no kind of action till we got in the game, and now you want to run around and do all the wrong stuff under the banner of Pan-Africanism. Just go to sleep. Just take a nap. Aren't you tired? I know doing nothing don't require a lot of energy, but aren't you tired of these last few weeks just running around and giving people your vision of reparations, even though your vision don't make no sense? Understand that reparations is a specific redress for a specific group. That's us. There's a specific cost that goes back to slavery. That's us, American chattel slavery. You can't just give money away because you want to. It's not your money to give. Goofy people. Anyway, going to 903. 903, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Good evening, Yvette.
Hey.
How are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
I am well. I am honored that you have allowed me to speak on your call tonight. My name is Sabrina, and I am calling from Texarkana, Texas.
Okay.
Just want to give some statistics in reference to these dispensaries and cultivating these marijuana farms in the state of Arkansas. Now, to be able to apply for a dispensary, you have to have $200,000 in a surety bond,
What's
and then
that?
have $100,000 in liquid assets.
Oh no.
The application fee was $7,500, and the license to cultivate the dispensary was $25,000. And then for a non-cultivating dispensary was $2,500. So you would need up front at least $110,000 to $132,000.
Let me stop you. Hold thought. Understand what she just said about. I want to explain something. Hold thought. What you just said about the application fee. You can spend $7,500 on an application fee and then not get approved. That means you got to have $7,500 to throw away. That's just the cost of doing business. Might not work. I'm gonna put it on there. That's how many black families is that? What's 1,700 times 3 or whatever? How many black families is that you gonna put on there? Now go on, ma'am. I apologize. Whew.
And as you were saying, and that's not guaranteeing you to be able to open up a dispensary. In addition to opening up a storefront, they didn't say you had to get one, but it was suggested. It don't mention anything about the time frame or how they'll process the application or whatnot. But that alone right there is going to knock out a lot of ADOS because, like you said, we are not privy to capital and wealth. Mm-hmm. We don't even make that much in salaries, let alone having it in reserve to start a business.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to cultivate or grow marijuana, you would have to have $1 million in a surety bond, and then have $500,000 in liquid assets. The application fee is $15,000, and then the license fee is $100,000. So to grow or cultivate marijuana, you would need to have like $615,000 to start to cultivate or grow marijuana legally in the state of Arkansas. So just these amounts alone, this is not meant for people of color. It's not for ADOS. They are purposely and systematically keeping us out of ownership and economic inclusion. Mm-hmm. And throwing the word reparations in is just really kind of baiting the carrot in front of our faces. They have no intentions on giving us reparations. Mm-hmm. Or the reparations that they may give out, it's not going to come to us.
Yep. They want to call it reparations and not be reparations. So they can say they already gave it when they didn't.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's all I want to share with you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
In the state of Arkansas. So, and I can just imagine what's going on around the nation. And then also, I live in a border city state. There's a Texarkana, Arkansas, and a Texarkana, Texas. Okay. In the state of Texas, it is not legal. So I could just imagine people going across state line, which is less than 10 minutes away, to get your marijuana from the dispensary, and then traveling back home and then getting pulled over by authorities. So then they're going to arrest you. Then you pay in the court system, so that they can pay by your taxes when you go buy the marijuana from the dispensary, because you're probably paying taxes on it, because Arkansas is you got to pay state taxes. So they're getting money in every form and fashion.
Yeah. Milking it.
That's all I want to share with you, Yvette.
No, I want to thank you for those statistics. That's a lot of money. Thank you so much for calling in, because that lets you know it's out of reach. So what does this mean? It means the same thing that it always means. We eat the failure and everybody else eats the fruit. So for however many years, marijuana is bad and you're going to go to jail. We got a war on drugs. We're going to lock up ADOS. We're going to lock up ADOS, especially ADOS men. We're going to lock them up because marijuana is bad. All of a sudden, marijuana is good, but it takes a bunch of money to sell it. And so they're going to eat the fruit of a profitable business. That's what marijuana legalization looks like. It looks like white people getting richer. But when it wasn't legal, it looked like us being warehoused in prisons. And that's America for you. And tell me we don't need tell me we're not old. Say it with your whole chest. All right, fam, I'm going to my next call. I'm going to 330. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Good evening, Yvette. How you doing this evening?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad for an old man. Not bad at all. Hey, look, I just want to talk to you a little about. I'm out here in Phoenix, and I had looked into getting an actual cultivating license.
Okay.
I actually looked in, and it's funny. The similar numbers.
You breaking up a little bit for me. Make like a tree.
Is that better?
I think so. I'll talk a little bit. Let me see.
Okay. Yeah, I looked into getting a cultivating license out here in Arizona, and I ran into the same issues that the previous caller just mentioned with the numbers. Basically, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million just to cultivate. I didn't want to get into a dispensary or anything like that. I just wanted to grow it. Okay. So then the next thing I looked into was, all right, let me start out small, because that's business 101, small steady growth. So I was like, okay, well maybe I can get something small. Okay. And I ran into it had to be certain dimensions away from a school and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when I realized that ADOS was designed to lock out ADOS. It's completely locked us out, and that's what it was designed to do. We are here. ADOS is here to consume goods. We're not in here to live the American dream. We're just here to consume.
Wow.
So it's unobtainable, basically. It's unobtainable. And I wanted to piggyback off one thing you said in your commentary when you talked about Lonzo Ball's and that shoe deal. Okay. I just want to be clear with that. That was a phenomenal idea. A phenomenal idea, a poor strategy. I don't know if he had a strategy or he just didn't execute it. I just want
to interrogate a little bit of what you're saying. What was phenomenal about the idea?
To start your own shoe company. I think that's a good idea. And the reason why I thought it was a good idea is because he already had a name.
Did he?
That's one of the things you need.
Did he? Because I didn't even know his sons. Like how did he already have a name?
In the basketball world, he had a name. All the basketball players knew him. Kids knew him. And that was the key.
But do consumers know you? Do consumers know you? Like, because I know Nike, I know Adidas, I've known it all my life. Like, I'm just talking about, and I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm talking about who you competing against, right? I've known Adidas all my life. I can tell you, like, how different Adidas shoes fit my foot and how they have always fit. I can tell you about how Nike, I can tell you New Balance, I can tell you Asics, I can tell you all of those shoes. I don't know anything about a Lonzo Ball shoe. Right? I don't know anything about that shoe just because you and your kids are known in the baseball world or whatever. I don't know anything about that. So I don't know anything about how your shoe would fit. I don't know anything about who will be manufacturing your shoe. I don't know anything about who I would take your shoe back to if I had a problem. I know if I have a problem with a Nike or Adidas or whatever, or whatever shoe I have, I know exactly who to take the shoe back to. This shoe is an unknown quantity by a man who has some kids who appear to be ballers. But I mean, in terms of like what they do on the court, I don't know how that is a brilliant idea. Especially when you don't have any distribution.
And I'll explain that to you. The reason why it was a brilliant idea is because there was no shoe. There's no shoe for any of those competitors, a black-owned company to compete with. Okay? Now, two things he had going for him. He had a name in the basketball arena. Everybody in the basketball arena knew who he was, and they knew about his game. Now, which was a start in the right direction. Okay. Another thing he had going for him is he was on TV. He played for the Los Angeles Lakers, so he got a lot of TV time. Okay. And the third thing that he had to do in order to get it off the ground was he had to put a strategy in place. Who was going to be your target market? Who were you going to advertise to? What he probably should have done is he should have went right to the high school to start.
Still would have failed.
At his high school.
He still would have failed. Market what? Nobody needs your shoe. Like these people are doing high tech shoes now. Like these people are doing boosts and high tech technology. Nobody needs your Chinese made shoe that's just a replica of another shoe. Nobody needs that. And it's not like it's a Jordan wearing the shoe or rest in peace Kobe promoting the shoe. Nobody knows who Mr. Ball is at the high school level. Like you're not gonna, you still haven't explained to me like how this was a good idea. And then you don't have any access to distribution, manufacturing. You don't have any of that. Like you're going to people who've been in this market for decades and you're going to compete against them with an idea of what?
Again, that's where your strategy come in. You just can't go from not having a shoe to Nike. It's going to take you some while to get there.
No, you don't have a while. You don't have a while. You don't have a while. No. You compete against Nike today. You don't have a while to get there. You compete against Nike today, and they crush you. You don't have a while to get there to where I'm going to get there to where I can really compete against Nike. You can't do that. You don't have it. You don't know. They killing each other today. You can't wait a while and well, I'm not at that level yet. No, that's not how capitalism works. Capitalism is a vicious market. They can just tell, listen, capitalism works, this how rough capitalism is. They can tell, like, listen, if you produce a Lonzo Ball shoe, we're not going to give y'all no more contracts to produce Nike. That's how they run it. That's how they run in game. They don't. If you produce any competition, we're gonna shut you down too, and you're not gonna get it. That's how they doing it. You can't compete against that. Well, just give us a little time. We's Negroes. You know how you could do something like that if you had protection, if you have a reparations plan that protected business and said you can't mess with them. You have to give them time to flourish. That's the only way you do it. And them shoes wasn't attractive either.
I agree with you. And the reparations would help. I'm not saying that would. But what I am saying is he had a little bit of capital, his NBA check and any commercial he had to get it started.
Let me just say this. And I'm gonna say this. Oh. I can go right now and buy a pair of brand new Jordans for $200. The Lonzo Balls were $400. Why? You don't even have the reputation of a shoe that should cost $400. Like, there's no reason that anybody ever should have bought that shoe except for the fact they want to support a black man. And that's not good enough. To promote a shoe and to have a shoe. Ain't nobody just gonna buy a shoe that's double the price and you're gonna cost me money. So I gotta give you a $200 donation. Cause that's what it is. If I can get the same shoe or whatever, it's not even the same shoe because Jordan is a Jordan. If I can get a $200 shoe, I'm giving you a $200 donation just because I want to support you. That's not even competitive in the marketplace. It was always a bad idea.
And everything you said is fine. That's why I said the idea was good, but the strategy was bad. How are you going to come out with no?
The whole idea was bad, and the shoe was bad too. The shoe was a Payless shoe. He was charging you $400 for. It broke on his own son couldn't wear the shoe.
And I agree with you. The price point for the shoe was too high. That's why it takes me back to my initial statement that the strategy was terrible. Like, you can't come out with a new shoe for $500. You can't do that. That's why I said the idea was good, but the strategy
But he had
was bad.
to. But he had to. He had to charge too much because he's not dealing in scale. See, Nike has relationships. They're going to do a bunch of Nikes, and so they can charge less. They can do it differently. They have all the distribution locked down, all the contracts. He going to have to charge more because of who he is and what he does not have because he's a Negro with just some ball-playing sons. It was never going to work.
And your point is well taken, but I think he had the resources to pull it off. I think his strategy was terrible. I think his strategy was terrible, and I think the execution, if he did have one,
it don't matter what he did. It was never going to work. It was never going to work. It would only work in an alternate universe somewhere. It was never going to work. Me and Antonio tried to tell y'all, there's no strategy where this would have worked. You compete against New Balance. You compete against Adidas, Nike, Reebok, all these. You could do no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you know what? We can agree. We can agree to disagree.
We can, and we have.
I'm sorry.
I said we can, and we just did. we.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. But I think if he had he had some type of strategy, I think he would have had a better shot.
Everybody says that. Fail. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate you calling in, but I gotta wrap this call up.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good one.
You too. But everybody says that. Like, if he had a strategy. I listened to the call, and there's no strategy that he could have. Look, see, the thing is, there's no strategy that you can have being undercapitalized, trying to compete against Nike, Adidas. Who was the other ones? Who was the big three? Nike, Adidas, not even Reebok no more. Reebok's trying to get his foot back in the game. No pun intended. There's no strategy that you can have. They have all. See, the shoe, you're not selling the shoe. We always think about the shoe. You're selling everything that comes with the shoe. You have all the distribution. You have relationship with the stores. You have contracts. You have contracts with the people who make the shoes. You have how you gonna get the shoe to market. Whether you gonna have it, you got it online, and you got it in Foot Locker, and you got it in Finish Line, and you wherever you got those. That's the shoe is only the end that you see. It's a whole mechanism to get that shoe to market. That's what you're trying to do. That's the key. He ain't have none of that. And it failed. It was always gonna fail. There was no way there was no way for this shoe not to fail. Just is what it is. I'm just trying to tell you. Anyway, going now to 310. What's going on?
What up, man?
What's going on, Antonio?
Get on into it. Can you pull the image up I just emailed to you, and I'll set up while you pull that up. Part of what I'm seeing as we're getting into this ADOS project is the exposure of people to their own blackness. Not the Iowa results. I actually sent you a different image, an image from my Twitter. What I think is starting to happen is that a lot of people thought they knew that they were black, but the data, the reality of the history is being presented in a way where it conflicts with the very person that they created themselves to be. They constructed themselves from Plato that at the end of the day don't make a lot of sense. And I'm looking at even what this last call was, because I wasn't even going to talk about Lonzo Ball and how it was I don't even know what the man was talking about. I did videos on Lonzo Ball. It should have been a micro loan at best. It didn't make no sense. The whole business didn't make no sense. But part of the reason that it didn't make no sense is because it wasn't a business. And I said that before the collapse. And part of the reason it wasn't a business is because black folks in America have been locked out of business. So people say, well, then isn't the answer just to start doing business? Well, you can't do business until you make it clear of the consequence of locking us out of business, or you end up in a circle. I'm running into this space where, as I'm looking at ADOS, people ask, like, they used to ask us what's the solution, and then when we created ADOS, and they don't want to hear what ADOS actually exposes, which is the reality that once you understand ADOS, you understand how collapsed your family is. Mine too. I don't understand how you live in this America at this moment and don't understand basic components of things, and then believe that you have expertise to say certain things. So he said we have a right to disagree. What expertise do you have to disagree with the failure of Lonzo Ball's business? What have you done to make you think that you have expertise in business? What you actually see is that all of these things, the weed thing, the interesting part about the weed thing is this is one of the interesting components is it's actually giving us a view into how structurally business is done in America. The way that they own in terms of real estate, the way that they pass out licenses. We normally don't get to see that, but all these businesses have those components. When you get to the end of the business, which is the basketball team on the court, or the shoe that's actually in the store, it is an expression of the line of things that got you to that point. Not just the fact that you were able to get a shoe in the store. But we come back to this consequence of not understanding where ADOS. Y'all can ask for solutions, but you don't know your ADOS. You ever seen somebody that don't know that they're walking backwards and ask you how to walk forward? I'm going to read this to you because it kind of frames everything, because I'm not understanding how I tell you this and you talk about starting a shoe company or a strategy being the problem. Again, out of 20 million black homes in the U.S., only about 340,000 break the $1 million threshold, all while over 15 million white families are worth more than $1 million, and over 1 million white families break $10 million. Matt Brunig from Demo.org and I were the first to show this in data. In addition, it's likely of the few black families that are hard asset millionaires, meaning these 340,000 blacks don't have $1 million. They might have $80,000 liquid. That includes stocks, liquid cash of $40,000. That's the kind of person we're talking about. In addition, it's likely of the few black families that are hard asset millionaires, fewer than 100,000 break $2 million. All while white wealth runs the gambit to the point where the top few hundred white families are worth more than all 40 million blacks combined. Hashtag ADOS. But we gonna start a shoe company. But even when the shoe company collapsed, Yvette, we still get calls that the reason the shoe company collapsed is because the man on the phone had a strategy that Lonzo Ball didn't use. Understand that Lonzo Ball sold a $500 shoe that was supposed to come in the glass case, never delivered the glass case to a bunch of people, so there's a bunch of lawsuits out there about the glass case. Then switched the shoe, sold one shoe, switched the shoe. But the shoe he switched it to was a Skechers shoe that already was in the market for $50. That's what black business begets if you don't do the work. So now we come into these communities and we start seeing the dynamics that a lot of people are talking about. And for me, it's kind of befuddling because I'm noticing for the chapters, I commend y'all on how y'all gonna do work. I don't step into your toes. I don't tell you what you're gonna do. Whether you're gonna try to turn the minds of this little woman that really doesn't matter all that much, or whether you're gonna turn meaning this ultimate, or whether you're gonna turn the minds and try to start a pack. But what I'll tell you is, if I tell you these numbers, and that's not even in context of 50% of the homeless families in America are black folks. That's not even adding that part in. So it's not like a bunch of us are nearly $1 million. There's these little families with some little money, barely enough, and then there's a bunch of poor blacks. But if we talk to ourselves like we want white wealth, then somehow we'll express that white wealth. That's what he was telling you, Yvette. Let's just talk about it in truth. He said if you're speaking into existence the strategy, they love to sit at the dinner table and draw out how they would get shoes to the market. A bunch of meetings that don't mean that much if you don't first do the politics for them to mean that much. their name? Do you know how hard it is, let me say it again, to talk to a person that doesn't know their name? I mean, they don't know that their name is Jamal. Y'all got family members that don't know their name is Jamal. But you want to jump right over and do the politics as if you organized and got $1 million in your pocket when barely any black people got $1 million in their pocket. I'm saying this because we're seeing this in the weed business. The reason that we partially seeing this whole thing with weed is all these black people didn't know they was black until they got told that they was black. That's what they're doing right now. They telling them all that they black. If they would have read over.
You still there, Tom? Tom dropped. His call dropped. A lot going on. Yeah. Going to the next caller really quickly. Going to 312. 312. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette. This is Saeed from Chicago. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well. I'm just going to make this quick. So I'm glad you brought up cannabis because I want to bring up a topic that's related to the subject.
Okay.
And it's called expungement. So right now there's a bill that they're trying to get passed. It's called the Fresh Start Act. And so basically what this act does is if it gets passed, they're going to put a lot of money into this bill that's going to allow lawyers to expunge the records of pretty much ADOS people who are affected by the war on ADOS.
Okay.
And what people need to understand about bills like this is like a new age neoliberal con game. Effectively what they're doing is they're using the suffering of ADOS people to further benefit non-ADOS groups and fund their already well-established law firms and paralegal firms. So what people have to understand is they're going to market this bill like it's going to be so good for the black community, black and brown community, this and that. But really, they're just going to be funding law firms owned by pretty much white people, and they're going to put money into this. And that money could be going literally to ADOS families to expunge their own records, or go out and get a law degree, or go out and start a business, or they're going to put money into this. But that money is going to go to white people to heal, quote unquote, heal, ADOS people whose records should never have been tainted to begin with.
Yeah.
So this goes back to one of your earlier shows where you talked about a con game.
Yes, redistribution. So you damage us, and then like you redistribute instead of giving us reparations and everything for what you did. You redistribute up to these law firms, to pay them.
Exactly.
To kind of do something about how we were damaged. Yeah, there's so many cons though. Like we said, we are the failure. Like that props up the so many little economies. Well, not little economies in this country in terms of like our failure. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So I have an analogy for like this new neoliberal kind of like con game that they got going. So like the free healthcare for all and free college tuition. So basically what they're doing is they're selling ADOS car insurance for a vehicle that we don't own. Like, give us the vehicle first and then try to sell us the car insurance. Yeah. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it, fam. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, that's a whole nother con. It's a whole nother con. Going back, you back, Antonio?
Yeah, I'm black.
Okay.
So I was just about to get into the weed business. And so essentially, one of the things that I'm seeing is that with the weed business, a lot of these people got gamed because they didn't have a political education. They were dishonest about the reality of America. They were also dishonest about the reality, and they were told mistruth. But they were dishonest about the reality of blackness in America and how little politics there has been done to actually create an avenue for everything. Part of the reason that the women in Chicago don't want to meet y'all ain't even about e-commerce. They don't register. It's because we talk about real reparations. What everybody else is talking about is nothing, basically. So it's easy to talk about nothing instead of talking about reparations. Now, I'm starting to look at ADOS, American Citizen Slavery, and I'm getting this sense that people want a solution when ADOS is the solution, but it is the first step to actually hold a discussion around reparations. Meaning, how did we get here where before Yvette and Antonio, everybody thought all the black people in America that could have got here in 1988 was going to get reparations? Do we understand how basic that is and how I don't even know how you, like, you guys are having a local issue where a woman is telling you anyone in a community will get reparations and calling it reparations. That's the issue y'all facing right now. Not an issue of amount. Not an issue of even if you're going to talk about purity tests, which I don't agree with. But a basic issue of whether you even exist. That's what she's talking about. Adolf is the solution to tell her that you exist. What I'm hearing from a lot of people is they want to skip that step. They want to jump right down the street. They want to skip the fact, as I said earlier in the earlier call, I told Dr. Cosby, how do you deal with somebody that don't know their name is Jamal? How do you get him to do basic stuff? How do you say, hey, I need you to come over here and put the wall up when there's 10 people and he don't know his name, Jamal? This goes back to Booker T. Washington, whether you agree with it or not. I've used the example before. You got the slaves coming into school, and essentially they want to learn Latin. He said, you need to learn to brush your teeth first. You need to learn basic hygiene first. Our group has borne the consequence of slavery and now wants to skip that consequence and jump right into the highest level of business and politics in the most advanced, hard-nosed time in American history. And we got a guy on the phone 2 calls back that said LeVar Ball had a genius idea. He just needed to do. He just Yvette. Ain't no just about it. And I'm saying this because we're also in an environment where the Dems don't even know it. They scatter. You know, if you pull up the Iowa image, we don't even know we're gonna get Iowa results today. Understand what we're saying. In the middle, they so busy with the impeachment. The first caucus, they don't know if they're going to get the results tonight. They having a meeting because things just got flustered. We try to understand that everybody wants to blame Adolf, right? You know, everybody wants to say, y'all might get Trump elected. Who's going to blame the Democratic National Convention? Who's going to blame the DNC for not being able? Who's going to blame Iowa for not being able to get this right? The first caucus. The Republicans know who won their caucus tonight. They know that Donald Trump won. They already announced. We out here dealing with an organization, a group of people that can't get their votes right. This don't make no sense. I'm saying to you that we can't be the fall guys. We gotta demand more, but we gotta start off with understanding who we are. I'm just coming to you for a second just to kind of talk because I'm seeing a lot of that last conversation in addition with the overall context of we just want to skip steps. You know what I'm saying, Yvette? I'll just leave it at that. We can't skip no steps.
All right. Appreciate it, Tom. As always, appreciate it. I am going now to take a couple more calls. I'm going now to 480. 480. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette. My name is Niall, calling from the Bay Area, ADOS Bay Area, and I wanted to just call you and tell you thank you so much for everything you've done. You and Tone always just laying it down. And yeah, I wanted to call simply to connect my mom with ADOS Arizona. It's been a hard road trying to get her to really open her eyes and just see that reparations is like the only thing that we should focus on. And it's been like over a year, and she's like, okay, I want to go. I want to get connected. So can you ask someone in the chat?
Okay.
Get me connected with the ADOS
and make sure you put your Twitter so that people can DM you in the chat as well.
Okay. I will. It's Niall Ross, but I'll put it in there.
No, put your Twitter name and so people can DM you with whatever information they have.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Going to my last call. I'm going to 916. 916. What's your name? Gosh, what happened? 916, what's your name, where you calling from, and what's on your mind?
I am, my name is Portia Dickens, and I'm in Sacramento, California.
Okay.
I call you I think it was last month in December and talked to you, but I totally agree with you. This is sharecropping. This whole ordeal. I've seen another guy promoting buying marijuana, and I got a problem with that because the scientific proof is still out there that it affects long-term, short-term memory, okay? And contrary to what people think, and I'm not, if that's what people want to do, I'm a recovering addict.
Okay.
In November of this year, I have 35 years, and I'm still working with people of ADOS descent that have to re-channel their mind and everything because drugs, marijuana specifically, is the drug that leads to all other drugs. And so this is a con game. This whole thing is on the stock market. They're just looking for another way to, like you always say, exploit us at the expense. If they gonna do that, why don't they let all these prisoners out of jail for free? That's what they need to be thinking about. Letting these guys stay locked up on marijuana charges. Here in California, you get 3 counts. You're in there for the rest of your life. Let them all out for free and then sue the state. Because you cannot go in certain states. That would be like, what, federal offense? To go across the line? You think they ain't going to be setting up police on them lands from California somewhere? This is crazy. It's insane. We need reparations, and it needs to be multidimensional and the way it is. And I'm totally wholehearted in the political process of getting reparations. How can Bernie Sanders say he can't give us reparations and he get reparations? And just not too long ago in Europe, the railroads got to pay the Jews reparations. It don't make no sense to me. It's totally illogical. But anyway,
thank you, fam.
I'm sharing that.
Appreciate it.
And that's it.
Appreciate it. And congratulations on your sobriety. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you, fam.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. You have a good night. Yeah. I mean, you know, I don't speak to it because I never went through it. But you know, I don't, you know, if you've been there and you've been an addict, you've seen people, I think you've probably seen stuff that like, and you know, other people haven't seen, and there's a whole science of addiction. So, you know, for some people it may be that thing that connects. For other people who don't really have that inclination or whatever, it's a whole different thing. So I don't really judge. It is what it is, but I understand what she's saying. They're going to have stuff set up and they can use that as a whole new funnel. The other caller said that too, a whole new funnel to create, you know, drug buyers coming across the line, locking you up. It's a whole processes. Anyway, fam, we have reached the midnight hour, the witching hour. So that is the last caller of the evening, fam. Wild times when you talk about what the marijuana undid. Anyway, fam, I will figure out what the next book will be soon. I have gotten a lot of recommendations that I appreciate. But please hit that like button for me. Please share, hit the bell. If you want to donate, you know what to do. DonateBrown.com, Patreon.com/YCarnell. But you can hit that like button for free, hit that bell for free, subscribe to Brown.com. And add your name to my email list. I do not spam anybody. You could do that for free as well, and I would appreciate it. And fam, you know, just chill out. Don't easy breezy, and we will talk again soon. Easy breezy. If you have not checked out the book club, part 1 and 2, please check it out. If you haven't read the book, They Were Her Property, read the book, and then go back and check out the book club videos. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interesting callers that hit people real different. A lot of specific examples in there. So if you haven't done that, do it, and be easy breezy, family, and enjoy the rest of your night. Till next time.
out here, we good. Get out here, we out here, we good.